Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Radio Dead Air Tech Q&A. You've got questions. We've got guesses. I'm Nash, been doing Radio Dead Air for ages. In addition to that, I'm also an IT professional. With me, as always, my producer, Mike Gehrman, who also works in IT. Hi, are you trying to be helpful too? Hi, do you want attention? Because I started talking. Charlie wants attention. How you doing, Mike?
Not too bad, not too bad. I had an interesting thing at work. They had to have me come in at 6 a.m. to support something. That is only a few hours earlier than I normally get in.
We have got, in addition to all the stuff going on in Minnesota, which has just been really overwhelming past few days, there's also, we're having a new heat pump installed tomorrow morning. It's going to be
good.
Well, yeah, it's expensive, and it's going to be an all-day production. Plus, they have to enlarge the return vent because when they originally installed it, they made it too small, which has been putting stress on the compressor for the entire time we've had it, because the air pressure has been, it's not wide enough. So they have to widen that. They also have to widen the return intake. And
so basically it's been sucking harder than it needed to because things weren't big enough.
Yes. And so that's going to be all day tomorrow. We're going to have to put the cats in separate rooms, and they're going to have to stay because it's going to be an all day. Hi, Grady. It's going to be an all day production tomorrow. Hi, buddy. What are you doing? What is Grady doing? Hi, Bozo. Hello. Yes, I know. You have thoughts. You're a good boy. So we have all that to do. Plus, I moved a security camera to the front yard because I want to have an eye on the street because, well, I don't trust the freaking government not to come in and harass my neighbors who are not white, which is a thing I have to say now in 2026 because everything's just a disaster. But in order to do that, there's no good way to power it on the front of the house. So I got a cheap little solar panel with battery pack off of Amazon. Trouble is, it's not working. And there's like no power level indicator on it at all. So, well, yeah, I mean, it worked the first day, but then I don't think the solar panel properly recharged it. And I don't know why, because the panel has been sitting, it's on the roof. It's like in direct sunlight for most of the day. And I don't know so like it worked initially. So I'm either going to have to figure out what's wrong with the panel or return it. And I don't know maybe I could find a flat cable that could go underneath one of my windows and run a USB-C out there. I don't know. Just it's a lot. There's freaking a lot going on right now.
By the way, in case anyone watching this wants to suggest it, no, we don't use Ring cameras on this show because they will happily let anyone.
Hey, Mike. Did you know Ring camera will let law enforcement? Did you know, Mike? Did you know that Ring will let law enforcement? Hey, Mike, did you know that Ring will let law enforcement use do you know Amazon will let law enforcement use your camera? Did you know that?
Yeah.
Hey, Mike, did you know that law enforcement, that's what it's like being on social media and mentioning security cameras right now. Nobody reads replies.
They might listen to it and go, oh, yeah, and yes, I know nobody reads replies. The only time people read replies, honestly, is if they think they have a spectacularly clever joke and they want to see if they were the first one to make it. If it's only a mildly amusing joke, they'll just go ahead and do it, even though there's 12 people who've already made that joke.
one of the largest social media networks these days used for organizing is no longer Twitter. It's now TikTok. That's the basis of a lot of organization and resistance movements and whatnot and protests. Well, as of a few days ago, Oracle has officially completed the acquisition
Blackmail
of
purchase.
TikTok. Yeah, the blackmail purchase of TikTok in the US. They are now a sort of separate TikTok, which is it's not really TikTok. It's sort of a TikTok connected to the rest of the world's TikTok, but it's its own TikTok. So they can control it, and they can control the algorithm on it. It's been purchased by Larry Ellison's Oracle, which I want to point out, Oracle is currently in a lot of debt and expecting a lot of money. It's like a lot of people owe them money, like OpenAI.
But have no ability. Yeah, but those people that owe Oracle money have no real ability to pay that money.
Right.
This is like buying a brand new car because you're expecting your cousin Larry to make good on his meth business and pay you back the $10,000 he fronted you. You fronted him 5 years ago.
Yeah. It's well, they have changed. The big news is they've changed things about their privacy policy. And there's some stuff in there about the ad networks. There's stuff in there about AI. The stuff that would mostly impact us, however, is they have changed the location tracking.
Mm-hmm.
Gives TikTok permission to use your phone's location service. The app may collect granular information about your exact whereabouts. Similar sorts of precise location data is also tracked by other social media apps like Instagram and X. But one of the things they don't mention that was changed about this privacy policy is TikTok says they will present information to the government. They do not say anything about requiring a warrant. So if the government requests information from TikTok, they'll just hand it over. Which, right now, that's kind of a bad thing for a lot of reasons and a lot of people. Now, I understand people, there's inertia when it comes to your social media network. Trust me, there was a lot regarding Twitter. Getting off of Twitter was a giant pain in the ass. And I realize TikTok is like the most popular one, the one where everybody wants to see and be seen. But it's dangerous now. And I know that most of the users do not appreciate what has changed. That's one of those things that they just, I don't know. It's hard to explain these things to people in a way that will get it through their heads, what's changed and what the problem is. And it doesn't help that the competitors to TikTok suck, which,
yeah.
In any event, I would recommend getting off of TikTok. One thing you can do, if you haven't, I know people have probably already opened their TikTok at this point, so you might, yeah. If you haven't, however, one thing you can do is put your phone into airplane mode. And if you're really concerned, that will allow you to delete your stuff without agreeing to their terms of service update. And then you can uninstall the app and get it off your phone without actually having to say, I agree to allow you to do this stuff. Screw that. I would recommend, if you're on TikTok, get the hell off TikTok. Yeah. Like if
the AT protocol ever does short form video, I would say roll to that. But
Yeah, I mean, if you have to, you got YouTube Shorts and you've got Instagram. Those are probably nothing's great, honestly. Nothing because Instagram, that's Mark's fucking Zuckerberg, and that's a completely different issue. But nothing's great right now. Everything, it's fuck. Yay. Well, let's see. What speaking of it's all fuck. Hey, Mike, do you remember near the end of the sweep of the metaverse, the big push to put everybody onto giant stupid nerd helmets that ruined your hair and took away your legs?
I will say the reason half of that wasn't concerning to people running Meta is because Zuckerberg's hair was already ruined. It looks like shit no matter what haircut he has.
And Apple decided to wait until quite literally the very last minute to hop in with the super expensive Apple Vision.
Yes. The Apple jumped in at the basically when everyone had decided, yeah, metaverse is probably dead. Apple goes, hey, we've got this great metaverse style visor thing you can wear, and it's only $3,000. Yeah. And nobody really bought them. I mean, there was a handful of sales.
You couldn't wear glasses with it, so you had to go to a optician to get corrective lenses for the Apple Vision specifically.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you wanted to wear this thing, you had to make a prescription. You had to go to your doctor, for fuck's sake.
The part that gets me about that, it's a computer screen on your face.
Right.
Now, I'm not the cleverest programmer in the world.
Right.
But I like to think that if I had something on my face that was displaying a screen, I could possibly whip up something that I could plug my prescription into and it would automatically adjust.
You'd think, but you'd be wrong. So, and of course, it was a tremendous flop. Apple's been sort of saying, "Oh, we're going to come out with a more affordable one of," and
that never happened.
It was it was amazing how big of a flop it was. Why am I talking about the Apple Vision?
Because they're doing it again.
It is happening again. Apple is reportedly working on an AirTag-sized AI pin with 2 cameras and no screen. Now, if you've been...
You're basically talking to your pin, and it talks back to you.
Yeah, you're asking it things.
It looks in the world and goes, "That's a cat." And you're like, "No, that's a bus." "It's a cat." "No, it's a bus." And then you get run over.
We've already well past the whole thing with the Rabbit R1 that completely crashed and burned. The Friend, that pendant thing that they put up ads for it in a bunch of cities and subways, and people just defaced the hell out of them.
Yeah.
And so now Apple has decided it's going to hop into it. And this is after OpenAI, which is also late to the game, is going to be making their own wearable AI pin thing, designed by Apple, the designer who's normally connected to Apple, Jony Ive, which this is also, remember, this is the man who brought us the rechargeable mouse with the charge port on the bottom of the mouse. Yeah.
So you couldn't use the mouse while it was charging. I mean, let's point out the design flaw there, Nash. The significant design flaw of you cannot recharge your mouse. You cannot even tether your mouse and go, "I'm just going to have it on a cord for now," and use it because the port was on the bottom. And the part that gets me about that the most, Apple has had some clever designs in the past. No one stood up and said, but what if you want to use the mouse?
Well, the whole reason why the charge port was on the bottom was because it was the ultimate inform over function. If they'd put the charge port on the front or on the back of it, it would have interrupted the lines, the pure smooth lines of the Magic Mouse. Also,
I think I froze again.
Yeah. The thing is, so now Apple wants to hop in with this. Reportedly, they're trying to plan this. However, one problem Apple's going to have with this is they don't have their own model. Google has its own model. No. OpenAI has its own model. Apple will be relying on someone else's model. Presumably it's going to be Google, because this is a product that's going to directly compete with whatever OpenAI is going to try to present. And that means this device will be at the mercy of whatever service Apple contracts for this. And if, say, for some reason, Google Gemini is killed off, and I know it's insane to think that Google would kill off one of its products. I mean, that's just a crazy idea.
Never happened. It's crazy talk, Nash.
It's crazy talk. But let's just say it does happen, and Google abandons Gemini. That means this Apple wearable will just be useless. It will have nothing to connect to. And that's one of the underlying faults of these devices. Without these services, they're useless. These are essentially the portable equivalent of a dumb terminal. Because without an AI model to connect to, they're useless. And there's no guarantee these AI models are going to be around even a year from now, considering the way the finances are going.
And part of me is wondering, companies have done this kind of stupid thing in the past where they've hard-coded the connectivity where it's supposed to point to. I wouldn't think that Apple would do this. But as we just mentioned, they put a mouse charging port on the bottom of the mouse.
So we have no idea what the price is going to be. We don't even know that it's actually going to get to release. This is just the beginnings of this, that Apple is going to be doing it. But they're also really late to the party. Trying to release new AI products in 2026 does not seem good.
No. Especially given the other failures of these other products. I mean, if Meta had been taking off and people had been signing up and doing stuff with it, and Apple came in and said, hey, we got a visor thing. People go, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Apple, this whole Meta thing is taking off. It makes sense for them to have a visor thing. But it was like, oh no, it's dying. Well, we're still going to announce it. Why? It'll make us look bad. Well, because there's a bunch in the warehouse and people will probably buy them. And no, they didn't.
One of the most annoying things about the whole Apple Vision bit is there's a game, a Marvel game, What If? Okay. That's based on the cartoon, and it's technically canon to the rest of the MCU, if you actually care about that stuff. It is part of the MCU. It's part of the whole cinematic stuff.
Is it only playable on that thing?
It's only playable on the Apple Vision. So that is going to be one of those pieces of lost stuff. Like the Star Wars Hotel, which is technically canon to that's the storyline they were running there, which is technically canon to Star Wars. And now no one else can experience it because it was just for the hotel. So this is working out great. This is all going. This is great. I mean, no, they're right on top of this. This is the thing that's definitely going to keep Apple on top, and not, all the other things people actually want.
I really think at this point they need to take up Steve Jobs and just put his corpse in the office, and they'll probably do better than the executives they currently have.
Well, we have a little bit of good news if you're concerned about the whole RAM issue right now and you can't acquire RAM. If you've been following along or you haven't, just a short recap, because of AI and tying up fabrication processes for server style RAM, home user RAM has been pushed to the back burner, and there's a shortage now, and prices have skyrocketed to unaffordable for a lot of them.
Indeed.
Now, if you happen to be a gamer, this is kind of a concern because, well, you might have
you
to
like
be
having a lot of RAM.
Like having a lot of RAM, and you might have to be making do with slower RAM, which when it comes to RAM has its own speed, just like your CPU or your GPU has its own speed. And the faster the RAM is, the faster that it can transmit data back and forth to your CPU. Since Ryzen 7000 premiered and AM5 premiered, AMD has said they recommended DDR5 6000 as their recommended speed, the sweet spot. You could get faster, but that would be diminishing gains, and the 6000 DDR5 would be providing what you needed. Well, now getting a hold of that faster RAM is being a problem. There is, however, a way around it, though I'm not sure it's going to be all that much less expensive.
No.
AMD has done some tests with the upcoming 9850, well, the current 9850X3D, and we have the 9850X3D 2 coming up with the 2cc. Anyway, they've done testing with the 9850X3D, and because the X3D CPUs have extra RAM built into them, they have shown that slower RAM doesn't make a huge amount of difference to your frames per second when you're gaming. Which, that's great, except the markup
but
on
it's only
X3D. Yeah.
Yeah, it's only for this specific model of chips. And it, as you said, it makes sense, that when you've got this special fast cache RAM on the processor,
right,
the system RAM doesn't have to work as hard. So, yeah. I mean, it'd be nice if AMD could sort out their issues so that it didn't require super fast RAM on regular processors, but they haven't needed to. It's the problem.
I didn't realize it's gotten worse. 32 gigs of DDR5 6000 is approaching $500. And 32 gigs of DDR5 4800 is about $400. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
That is absolutely crazy. I got 64 gigs of DDR5 5600 when AM5 launched, and it was less than that. And that's 64 gigs. Wasn't much less, but it was less than that. So it's neat that AMD is trying to market it this way. The only problem is, I'm just going to look this up right now. 9700X. How much is that running for right now? And you get a 9700X CPU for about $300. And the 9850X3D is approximately $500 if you can actually get it. It's launching at $500 if you can actually get it, because there's going to be a shortage. So for an extra $200, you can get an X3D CPU, or for an extra $200, you can get faster RAM. It doesn't seem like there's much of a upside either way.
No.
Personally, I get the faster RAM. If I had to spend money on RAM right now, I get the faster one, because what are you doing down there? Goober, what are you doing?
I'm swapping video sources so I don't freak. So that's what. Oh, the cat.
Hi, Goober. Hi.
So I was looking up. I was trying to look up how much I paid for the RAM for this computer, and Newegg doesn't tell you that. They say, "Hey, here's your order. Here's what you ordered. Here's the total," but doesn't split out what it was when I bought it a year ago.
It doesn't have an invoice?
I probably deleted it, not thinking about it, because it was a yearish ago.
Hi, goofball.
But certainly less than it's going for now is what I paid for it.
Going for now, yeah. I mean, it's an interesting idea to offer the X3D as an alternative to faster RAM. The only trouble is there's not really a good price savings on it. And honestly, it's one of those, well, I'd rather have the faster RAM because that can translate to a newer system, because we're going to be on DDR5 for a while, so you can keep that RAM longer.
Yeah.
You're probably going to have a RAM. I have had systems where I kept RAM longer than I kept the CPU.
Same, absolutely.
I'm still using the DDR4 that I had in my Threadripper system. I had 64 sticks.
Because if nothing else, you can transport it to another system and go, "Hey, you just got an upgrade, Bob."
I had 64 gigs of RAM in eight gig sticks. I have four of them in my media server for 32 gigs. I have two of them in my backup system for 16 gigs. And I have another two spare. And, that's RAM that I got close to, what was it, 2017? Close to 10 years ago. I keep, the CPU is long gone. I keep RAM much longer than I keep a CPU. So it seems to me that while they're trying to, this is neat. It's neat that the X3D can offset RAM speed. It's also a little misguided because practically speaking, it's not a good solution. I mean, if the X3Ds were significantly cheaper than RAM right now, that would be like, wow, okay, that's a viable idea. It's not. So, all right, that was news this week. Now we're going to get to your questions. If you've got them, you can send those to request@radio.air.com. We can try and help you out. Good double check, see if we got anything new. No, not yet. So we got what we got. All right, let's start with Dimitri again. The saga of the Acer Nitro, the one that was shutting off with the power supply and whatnot. Okay. Oh, well, that's the last one. Let's start with this because this is following on from there. Hi, Nash and Mike. Dimitri again had another question based on what you said last week. Would replacing the Acer Nitro case benefit the computer in performance? And can you tell me what kind of motherboard and case to buy that will work with all my stuff? Thanks again, Dimitri. To catch everybody up at home, Dimitri's got an Acer Nitro 50, which is an off-the-shelf proprietary system. And a lot of big problems with proprietary systems is the motherboards only work with that case. They're not transferable. They're not standard ATX spacing. You can't use them with anything else. And that's also the problem we have with the power supply because it was only using 6-pin instead of 24. It's a whole bunch of stuff there. Okay. It will if replacing the case would benefit in performance. I looked at that case and I could confidently say yes. Number one, it's a small case. Number two, the intake is really choked off. The air intake, it's like see if I can find a picture of this damn thing because it is. They use the same case for like a bunch of different models, but the Acer Nitro 50. Yeah, let's get a picture of this thing here. Let's Okay, give me the open image. Open image. There we go. No. I don't want to save it. Open image, new tab. Thank you. Let's bring it over here. Yeah, well, actually, there's a couple different ones actually, but they're all not great. This one's got this version of it has got like a nice ventilated side panel, I guess, but there's no fan on it. There's just ventilation on the side panel. The fans are actually here under this solid piece, and there's a little bit of a vent at the bottom that's meant to draw air in. Also, they're not standard sized 120 millimeter. They're thin 120 millimeter fans, which don't work as effectively. It's got a regular 120 millimeter exhaust, and it looks like it's using a standard, very basic AMD cooler on their AMD model, which is good because that means, it's compatible with other stuff. But all in all, you would benefit performance-wise because that mean we've reached a point. It used to be overclocking was a thing that was done by people who really want to know who really knew how to get into the ins and outs of computer systems. They could make their CPUs and GPUs run faster than they were supposed to. And they'd get essentially free performance. The trade-off would be extra heat and higher power bills, so you'd have to have some way to cool it and, make things work. Now, however, in this modern age of computing, CPUs and GPUs have been designed so they overclock themselves. And in fact, they will go as fast. Yeah, they'll go as fast as their thermal headroom will allow. So it will ramp itself up until its temperature gets too high. If you have a cooling solution that can handle it, you get more performance for free. You don't have to do anything. It's basically how they're built. If, however, you don't have a good cooling system for your machine, then you're actually going to be held back on performance. Your system's not going to work as well as it possibly could. What will that translate to? Not a huge amount of performance loss, but it could. If it gets seriously overheated, then it won't work properly anymore. But in general, you'd lose a little bit of frames per second, a little bit of speed on like rendering video or compiling data and stuff. Generally, as far as what case to get, there are bunches.
Yes. What I would look for is something with a mesh front, 2 to 3 standard fans, LED or not, your choice, on the front, at least one on the back. And there's multiple cases that come with 4 built-in fans. Like, here, have 4 fans with our case. A place to look would be our holiday build guides, where we, you may disagree with a bunch of stuff we did in there, but our case choices, I think, were pretty solid.
Yeah, Montech is a good place to look for a new case because the prices are reasonable, they're fairly low, and they provide a lot of free fans with the system. They're not the best fans, but they are free, and they can be, your speed can be controlled. You can upgrade those later. But what you will get is you'll get good cooling, good air performance, a better way to keep your system cool. I looked at, it's hard to find the AMD model because there's like an AMD model, there's Intel models. It looks like the AMD model cooler that comes with this will clip onto a standard AM4 ring. The cooler for AMD up until AM5 was kind of goofy. It didn't have screws unless someone made like a special set. It had this little clip thing that you had to like put one side in place and then clip down the other, and that would just sort of grab onto it. The good news is the cooler you have in your existing AM5 Nitro, while it's not the best, you can reuse it and you can maybe upgrade that later. As for
Can I go back to case real quick?
Oh yeah.
The specific case I would recommend right now is the Montec X3 mesh. It comes with 6 fans.
That sounds good. As for a motherboard, you have a Ryzen 5700G, which is an AM4 CPU, and you can pretty much grab any AM4 motherboard. The only trouble is, if you're going to be using an you can get a deal. You're going to lose out on stuff like PCIe 4.0 and some newer features, but you can get a deal by using a B350 motherboard. That's the first gen of Ryzen motherboards. They're still compatible with the 5000 series. The only drawback is you might have to flash the BIOS before you can use the motherboard, because that motherboard's BIOS may not, if it's not up to date, then it won't know what the 5700G even is, and it won't work right.
Now, a moment ago, you said you would miss out on PCIe 4.0. I think you meant 5.0.
No, 4.0. The B350
So I'm seeing some
didn't have...
the B350. If you go up to a B550, you can get 4.0. Depends on what your budget is.
Yeah, the B350 didn't have PCIe 4.0. You didn't get PCIe 4.0 until the B550. Although I do think a couple of B450 motherboards, it was specific to those motherboards. Your best bet, if you could afford it, is to get a B550 motherboard. And there are a bunch of different models. You can look up the reviews on them. I recommend whatever you get, make sure they've got nice large heat sinks on the VRMs. That's what enables. It's not just the CPU that needs cooling. It's also the voltage regulation, because when the system's auto overclocking, it's drawing more power, and those VRMs, the voltage regulation MOSFETs, I believe that's what that stands for, regardless, they get warm. The more power they draw, the more power they provide, they get warm. If they have good, adequate heat sinks for cooling, they can offset the temperature. If they don't, they'll overheat and stop providing as much power to save themselves. So whatever motherboard you want to get, there are around the motherboard socket, you're going to see, I'm going to try to find a picture of these. And
the other reason you should go with the B550, I would say, is because you do have an RTX 3060 Ti, and that is PCIe 4. So
yeah. All right. Yeah. Here's a good picture. Just a quick shot. This is what we mean by a VRM heatsink. It's normally these heat sinks that surround the CPU socket. You want big ones. The beefier, the better. The larger surface area. That means they can dissipate heat better. That's the one. That's what you want to go with. Lots of different models. Just look at it. The cheaper models will have cheaper VRM heat sinks, and it will show up in the performance. You don't want to go for the lower end there. I think that's everything to look for. I like the MSI Tomahawk series. Those have been fairly reliable.
Now, one thing to note, because you are switching to a different motherboard, you are going to have to get a different power supply as well, because that existing power supply. He already replaced
the power supply.
Well, I thought he borrowed one from a friend. I don't know if he replaced it.
Well, yeah, but he was going to have to do that anyway. Whichever power we figure out he had a bad power supply, so whichever one he does, he's going to have to put a new power supply in there regardless. So but he is going to be using a 24 pin. He's already going to be replacing it. So. All right, let's go back to the one we should have started with. This is from Shadow ACS. Just wanted to follow up with you guys. I'm the guy who had the Xbox controller with the left trigger button malfunctioning. Your first instinct was right. It was the cable that was bad and not the controller. Swapping to a different swapping to a different cable completely solved the issue. Thanks a bunch. I did have a quick question on cable recommendations. I bought a cheap replacement cable from CVS that works fine, but it's only 3.3 feet long. That's short enough to be slightly inconvenient for me. They had 10-foot ones, but I know they're using a cable that's too long, cause problems with the signal degrading before it reaches the computer. Any recommendations on what a decent length for a cable to connect an Xbox controller to a computer would be, regards both convenience and functionality, and can you recommend any specific brands that are better than others? All right.
Okay, so
With
the first thing I'd say is measure the distance you're going to be sitting from the computer, and at least go that long.
Well, the Xbox One controller came with a 10-foot cable. So it can handle a 10-foot cable with no problem. The trouble is not all USB cables are built the same. Some people skip out on them, and if they're not built right, they're not going to transmit data as fast as they should. There's a lot of really annoying things, a lot of USB 3.0 cables that are actually wired as USB 2.0 cables. And you'd never know it because they all look the same. It's just, USB-C connectors can actually be wired for USB 2.0.
Yeah. I've run into some USB-C connectors. I mean, some cheap cables at work. I'm like, where did you get this cable? This cable did not come from me. Just the user was reporting the cable doesn't work. I go over to their desk. That's a cheap cable. And I turn the cable over. Literally unplug, rotate, plug back in. And it works because they only wired it up partially.
There's also the one where if you're not careful and they don't mark it clearly, you'll find a USB cables that are power delivery only because they haven't put the wire in there to wire up any of the data.
I have one.
Huh.
Okay. So you know how on the USB A connector, it is supposed to be the little USB symbol, the little goes up.
Right.
So many people do not know this. I've got one cable where it's like, no, I go down.
They put it on the wrong side?
Put it on the wrong side.
All right. In this instance, I've noticed myself using the dang thing. I've used my USB, my Xbox controller before. It really likes the connector that came from Microsoft. It really likes that cable. In fact, that cable's even got like a little LED on it that indicates when it's charging and whatnot. So it really likes that cable. If you can get the replacement from Microsoft, you are guaranteed that thing's going to work. However, it might be a little pricier.
$60.
$60 for a USB cable. A reliable cable provider that I've used for a long time, I recommend them quite a lot, is Monoprice. They have reasonable prices on their stuff, but they aren't really crazy. I think this is an Xbox One controller, so it's using micro USB. It's still using the older connector. I haven't checked on the Xbox Series X. Do those use USB-C? Let me look.
I couldn't tell you.
Those use USB-C? No, it does not have USB-C. All right, yeah, they're still using the old micro cable. You'll need to get
Monoprice. At Monoprice, a 6-foot cable will run you $1.50. And a 10-foot cable will run you under $3.
I mean, there's still shipping, but just make sure you get the most heavy duty one you can, because one thing about controller cables is there's going to be you're going to be moving it around a lot. And that's probably what happened in the first place to your original cable, is you were moving it around a lot like you're supposed to use it, and it wore out. Some of those, there's a short somewhere in the cable, and it wore out. That's what happens. So when you get one from Monoprice, they have some cheaper ones. They have the little ones that are a little more pricey, but not crazy expensive. try to find some. I really like the braided cables they make these days. Instead of having just a regular PVC jacket, they have this nylon braid on the outside. That does tend to make the cables a little more resilient in my experience. They're not, you can still wreck them if you want to, but they are more resilient than they would be otherwise. And you should be able to use up to a 10-foot cable. If you go past 10 feet with USB 2.0, you run the risk of, yes, it won't, the bandwidth limitations will become a little more pronounced, and you won't be able to, it won't work right anymore. You still there, Mike?
I'm still there. Did I freeze up again?
You froze up again. You were frozen today.
I bet it's the video drivers. And it said, oh, yeah, you don't need to reboot after this install. Okay.
They lied. All right. Well, anyway, Shadow ACS, that's... There you go. Now you're back.
Now I'm back.
So yeah, Shadow ACS. That's what I recommend. Monoprice is they're a good brand. I'd recommend them. I've recommended them quite often. I use them myself. So, all right, this is from Nathan, and these are opinion questions, but okay, I don't mind those. They're kind of interested. Okay, 2 questions. 1, when do you think PC prices will come back down?
3 to 6 months after the AI bubble bursts.
Probably more closer to 6. The problem right now is there is a lead time between production and getting things to retail. The biggest problem right now with trying to get things to consumers is that all of the production lines are spoken for. The AI companies have gone in and they've bought up all the production time with all the companies, which is why parts are scarce and hard to find. If the bubble, when the bubble does eventually pop, because it's a financial bubble, it's not stable. When it does pop, there's going to be some scrambling, because suddenly you're going to have price drops on a lot of stuff that's going to be absolutely useless to us here as consumer users because they're server grade stuff. And you'll have companies who are going to rush to try to ramp up production of consumer products again.
To make up for the massive hole that has suddenly appeared in their budgets. Hi, NVIDIA.
So what will happen is, 3 to 6 months. I think 3 months is being really, really optimistic. It's going to be 6 months after the bubble pops before supplies start to become more available. And once supplies start becoming more available, it's going to be a few more weeks before prices start coming to a reasonable point. It won't be this year.
Yeah, the reason I'm going as a low end 3 months is because there are some signs, and there may be some early movers going like, this is about to pop.
Maybe. Yeah.
And the one thing I say based off of that is apparently in the last month, there have been double-digit data center construction cancelizations.
Yeah.
Which is more than all of last year. That's a sign.
Yeah, one of the things about this AI crap is they're like, oh, they're spending all these billions, and all of the media is getting it completely wrong. Quite a few of these companies haven't spent shit. They've made commitments, but they haven't put in dime one on any of these projects. They just committed to it. They said we're going to do it, but nothing has been moved around. Nothing. It's all on paper. It's all, oh, we'll get to this, and they can cancel them and be like, we're not even going to start this shit. It's not going to be 2026. It's not going to be till next year.
I mean, unless something weird happens in the next 2 months. But
the other question he has was, do price increases for Windows machines make Apple a viable alternative? And the answer to that is, it depends. It's not like Apple machines have gotten cheaper. It's just that compared to Windows machines and the price markups we can expect, Apple machines might seem like, well, they're close to the same price, so why not consider Apple?
Yeah.
There are some downsides on that. However, number one, if you're getting in doing this for gaming, no. Apple has a lot. They've made a lot of progress. The Apple Silicon stuff is pretty good graphically, but not every game is going to work on it because it is the Apple Silicon architecture is ARM based. It is not x86 based anymore. It's its own architecture, and you either have to code for that architecture or you have to add an emulation layer for that architecture. Now, some companies like CD Projekt Red have made a Cyberpunk 2077 version specifically for Apple. Not everybody has done that. So you will have to hope that maybe it will work with Steam, and Steam will have, I don't know how that would work on. I have not had a lot of experience with it. There are some native Mac games, like Baldur's Gate 3 has a native Mac game. There are some games that are native, but it's a rarity as opposed to a surety. You cannot be guaranteed that you're going to find a game that will run on the Mac that also runs on PC. And also updates for those games tend to lag behind updates on. So if you're looking for a gaming machine, Apple might not be what you're looking for. I mean, there's Stardew Valley is on it.
Yeah, if you're looking for a general purpose computer, I would say still probably go with a Windows-based computer because it's going to be cheaper because you're not going to have necessarily the high-end stuff. If you're doing graphic design, maybe Apple is your way to go because that's what's used in a lot of graphic design shops.
I will point out Salem Techsperts he up until recently, because of the memory issues, he was refurbishing office laptops for people to use at home. He's had to stop doing that because RAM is too expensive. However, he did have his last batch had a bunch of M1 Apple AirBooks, which those aren't a bad deal if you're looking for something slightly older. Again, these aren't going to be gaming machines, but they are going to be general purpose and or creative applications. Will probably work pretty well on those. Even the M1, which is the first generation of Apple Silicon, still performs fairly well. And the operating system now is native to Metal and the Apple Silicon, so it should perform fairly well. So you might want to look into a refurbished M1 MacBook. Part of why the prices aren't spiking on those like they are on others is the memory is hard soldered. What's happening now is resellers and recyclers, instead of refurbishing laptops, they're just yanking the RAM and the SSDs out of the laptops and reselling those because they're worth more than the entire laptop all by itself. So they have, it's with the M1s, because the RAM is hard soldered, they can't yank it out, and the SSDs are hard soldered. They can't yank it out. It makes it hard for you to upgrade them. But right now, you can get a good deal on them refurbished because they can't be stripped for parts. So It's not a bad look to find like an M1 or an M2. The early Apple Silicon, and Raritor says also M1 units can run Linux. Yeah, I mean, well, anything can run Linux. You know, your grandmother can run Linux. You can install Linux on your grandma.
I don't recommend that.
No, you put the USB stick up her nose and you grab her ear for 10 minutes so she reboots, and then it'll start the install. You might want to use, I recommend using Ubuntu or Mint on your grandmother. It's the easiest for general purpose. Don't do something like Debian on your grandmother.
Don't listen to this man. He's quite clearly insane.
What you are you saying you would install Debian on your grandmother, Mike? What, shame on you.
She passed, so I wouldn't install anything on her.
So anyway, this has gone place. Yes, it has, Raritor. If I wouldn't, a lot of people like buying Macintoshes new, not simply because of the computers themselves, but Apple is more renowned for its service. That if you buy a MacBook, that for the length of the service you have with it, Apple Care and whatnot, they will take care of you. And you know you can go to a Genius Bar. If something's wrong with it, they will either fix it or you'll get another laptop like that because it's all covered. It's when it runs out of service, out of warranty and whatnot, that's when it becomes a little bit trickier. If you don't mind not having Apple Care, the refurbed Apples are a pretty good deal. There's still just brand new ones are still going to be pricey just because Apple is more, they are selling services more than they are hardware. So I will say they're not bad machines. It's just the lockdown on the RAM is kind of irritating. The hard soldered SSDs is really irritating because that means when that SSD fails, that laptop has failed. If you can't replace the storage, then that thing will be just effectively useless. I hate that. I hate that's a terrible design. That is design. I mean, SSDs are user replaceable parts for a reason because they wear out. If you make a laptop where the SSD cannot be replaced, then you're making a laptop that has to be thrown away. That is so stupid and so bad. Just keep that in mind. That's the limitation on trying to get to an Apple right now. I'm not saying the hardware is bad. A lot of their practices are bad, but the hardware is actually really interesting. And Apple Silicon has been really impressive. It still does lag behind x86 in a couple of ways, but overall, it's been very competitive, and it's only getting stronger. So, all right, I think that's
you know what I just noticed?
Huh?
There's this little green arrow at the top of Discord that says "Update Ready." Gee, thanks, guys. Most apps pop up a little thing in the window. Okay, hey, there's an update. OBS pops up a little app that says little window that says, "Hey, there's an update." And I'm like, it's 5 minutes before the show. I'm not updating OBS right before the show. That was 3 weeks ago. I've updated since. Discord, like, nah, we're not going to tell you. Still going to reboot.
For general purpose, though, there's nothing wrong with Mac. There's a little bit of a learning curve going from Windows to Mac OS, but it's not tremendous. Hey, Charlie boy. And for general purpose and for creative stuff, they're pretty good. If you want gaming, Macintosh is not for you. There's just they're not as focused on gaming stuff as they are other applications. You can game on a Macintosh. It's just there's going to be a lack of titles. So, yeah. All right. That is going to do it for this week. We'll be back next Saturday at 9 p.m. Eastern, barring, all of the chaos going on right now. If you have tech questions for Mike and myself, send those to requests at radiodeadair.com or put those in the comments of the YouTube. And we'll see you back here next time. Good night, folks.